What's up, guys? Jordan from Bennett's Customs. We're still working on the 32 frame, getting it very close to being able to pull it off our jig that we had fabricated, which is exciting because body's on, and then we can start working out motor, transmission, rear end, all the fun stuff to get this thing rolling. So one thing I need to do on today's episode is I need to make a simple boxing plate that'll go in here just to help strengthen up this area where we had to do a little bit of this frame repair. So I could just, put a little plate in here with some holes around it and weld it straight to the frame, job done, but I don't want to do that. I want to make this look like it hasn't been repaired, and I want to make it look like the boxing plates we're about to put in were done by factory. So what I'm going to try to achieve is making a wood buck that'll be slight, this is 3 mil. So it would be, say, the wood buck would fit in here, less 3 mil on each side for the material that we're gonna bend. But what I'd like to do is a really nice kind of bit that flows in here, kind of end it sort of around this area. And we're gonna hot rivet this in, and it's gonna kind of be recessed inside with a nice little flange on the top and bottom, and kind of sit, halfway on the frame rail itself. So what it'll essentially do is just going to strengthen it up. I'm going to make a nice little flange that'll come over and actually fix into the cross member, so we can put 2 more rivets into that, and that's just kind of strengthening up this whole back section and really, helping this back area where we've welded it. So a little bit more work than probably just traditionally putting a boxing plate on here and just welding the edge. But because we've kind of gone through, the effort of hot riveting this back into place and, allowing it to have that little bit of flex that they do, I'd like to do the same here as well as kind of keeping it uniform and set up really nicely. So, all right, so let's get into it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, hit notifications. For those who are new to the channel, this is going to be a very special build, and we will be doing a full build series basically from start to finish. So if you go into our previous videos that we've put out lately, there's a bit of an intro and I kind of explain what we're about to do. And we'll basically be filming this from start to finish till it's done and on the road and enjoying it. And we'll probably do more videos when it's on the road and enjoying it. I don't even know why I said that. Okay. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this cardboard, I'm gonna stick it on the inside of here, I'm gonna trace it out, and we're gonna cut a little piece out just so we have something to reference it on. And then I just got some, I think this is like 16 mil maybe, form ply. And I'm just gonna double it up and just make maybe 2, maybe even 3 pieces and make it quite thick so we have something to work off of. And then I got the router. So I'll router an edge, so we got a nice edge to fold over. No idea if this is even gonna work, but we're gonna give it a red hot crack. All right, so I'll probably have to trim it a couple times to get it to fit kind of how I want it to. But I might actually just cut that out for a sec. Whoop. Okay, so we got a loose little template. So now I'm just gonna cut that out with a blade, and we'll fit it, make sure she works. Okay, so now we got our piece. So I just wanna make sure. Then what I need to do is remove the material on the side of the frame so it sits in, plus the bent or the bit that we're gonna fold over on the buck that's gonna fit in there, which is also 3 mil. So essentially we need to take 6 mil off each side. May even go 7 mil, just so we have a bit to work with once it's folded. So I'm just gonna run a little scribe line. So that's the material thickness of the frame plus the material thickness that the bit we're gonna fold over. So I'll try and get this on the line as nice as I can. Nice little piece here, and what I'm going to do is just trace this out onto this form ply, and then I'll cut out probably 2 pieces, maybe even 3 of them, and then I can kind of put them all together. I'll sand them, and then I'm going to router this top and bottom so we have a nice contour, and then we'll sandwich it in with a plate on top. I'll probably cut a steel plate out just to help it not want to pull up. And then we're going to screw this straight down into the board itself, and then we'll be able to make a buck. So I'm kind of hoping I can use 1 buck for both sides. So I just measured, kind of looks similar. We're just going to go with it. Might work, might not. You know, who knows? Might be too much. We'll see. All right, so here we have the 2 pieces. They're screwed together, so we know that they're the same. They're equal all the way along. I just kind of hit them with the DA and 180 quickly just to smooth everything out. So what we need to do now is I need to use the router and radius the top and bottom on both sides for a left and a right side. And that's just going to allow, when we go to sandwich the metal between here and our upper plate, that it'll kind of have an edge to want to roll off of when we're trying to hammer it down. So this would work like really well with thin sheet metal. I'm unsure if it's going to work with 3 mil, but we're going to have a crack. I'll just be able to use the oxy and acetylene to warm up the edge, and we can just kind of heat and bend that down. So I think that should be good, just 2 of them. I don't think we need to allow a 3rd. So what I'm going to do is try and find a die. So we got our router and our bit in there. It's got a nice little radius edge on it, so that'll kind of give us a nice little piece to work off of. And I'm just going to do the top and bottom, and I'll set this up, make sure it's in the area where we want it. I don't know how long this buck will last, because we are probably going to have to, I will use the torch in order to heat up the edges to try and get them over. So I don't know. I don't know how long the wood will actually last before it starts to catch fire and kind of, burn away. So who knows? If we get two, one shot out of one side and one on the other, then that's all we need to really do. Edges, real nice radius. So when we put that metal in there, we have our little flange that'll hang off the end, and we go to bend that down with the hammer. It should allow a really nice contour to stay in the middle. Maybe, maybe not, who knows? All right, so we got kind of a rough idea of what we're doing here. So we have it up there. I've allowed a little flange to come out so we can have two little rivets, and that'll kind of connect into the cross member. So I know that I need to add material on both sides of this. I've measured it out and measured how much material it's going to take to make that radius as well. So if I add 25 mil to each side of this, cut that out, put that piece in, and then what we'll do is we'll make a smaller piece of this, actually bring it in probably 10 mil and make it out of some thick plate that we can put on here. And then we'll screw everything together, clamp them down, and then we can try and hammer the edge. So what I'm going to do now is I'll put this on our 3 mil steel out the end. I'll just put some tape or something to hold this down, and then I'm going to add the 25 mil to each side. All right, so 25 mil. So I'm going to, fortunately it's kind of an awkward shape and I have to add bits, so I think what's going to happen, I'm going to waste a bit of material here, but I'll always be able to use it for something else. And then what we're going to do is, so there's our 25 mil on that side. So I'll probably end up like radiusing the edges and stuff too, so they kind of all stay nice. That one I'm going to bring into about there because we have a step that we don't want. Yep, so that'll miss the step, which is good. And then yeah, these will probably just get rolled over slightly when I go to cut it out. Same shape, right on the line, both sides. And I can just trim that off, run it on the linisher just to clean up the edge. And then we'll make the thick one that's going to be our top plate that'll hold everything together. And then we'll try and heat this up and bend it. All right, so I have my piece. I'm actually going to use the edge of this with the edge of my plasma cutter. I've done it before. I know it sounds crazy to use cardboard for it, but if you're just doing it a couple times, it'll totally do the job. Probably just put a vice grip on it. I want to make sure my cut is right on that line, which it is there. So I'm just going to grab maybe 2 clamps and I'll clamp it down. Whenever you're kind of using the plasma cutter as well, I always try and like do a few passes to make sure I'm not going to hit anything. I really like the way that's going to follow, and as long as I keep it consistent, I shouldn't burn the cardboard too much and should be able to cut this out. So we're going to try that now. So it burned it just a little bit there, but that's okay. That's totally usable. So what we can do now is go to our other side. So we need to follow, that's why I've done a line across so I know where to have it come down. We want it that 5 mil that we're looking for. So this one, I'm gonna come in on an edge, so I'm not having to pre-drill. And then as soon as I got that edge, I got a nice one to follow along. If I put it down there, I'm right on the edge there, so that's really good. Now these little areas here, I will end up, I'll use the angle grinder and actually cut those out. I think it'd be a little bit cleaner than kind of playing around with this. So what I need to do is cut this bit out, and then we'll make the top plate. Okay, so this is a 10 mil sheet that I'm going to utilize for the top piece. I actually want it to be 5 mil smaller, than what this is. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably just cut one line and then I'm just going to slowly move it over. So if I can get it kind of close. Yeah. Trying to keep it relatively consistent, slow enough where it's actually penetrating, going straight through. You saw it kind of kick up a couple times. That's just me, like, you know, trying to keep that speed consistent. So we're gonna move this back now. Yeah. Okay. So take this off. All right, so we'll clean this up. But here's what I'm thinking. That is extremely hot. Okay, so we have our wooden buck with our beveled edge. And then this is our actual piece that we're going to try and bend the flanges to actually make work. So once those are lined up with our reference points, then we're going to take this guy, stick him on top. This is slightly smaller all the way around, which is good. So it'll allow me to get the hammer on the edge if I need. And then we're just going to clamp all this down. Well, if it works, it works, which I'll be stoked on. And if it doesn't, well, total bummer. But I think it'll work. So that nice big thick 10 mil piece, that's just going to keep everything flat. We have the timber under there. That should hopefully stay together. Who knows? This could all not end up well, but we're gonna try it and see. And if it doesn't, well, I'll still put the video out and show you the fails. So what I could do, I have a couple options. I could drill this out and then put 3 screws in just to keep everything, like, I'll still utilize putting a ton of clamps on it, but it just helps, you know, everything kind of go back into the same position. If I need to pull it out and put it back in, then I know exactly where my reference points are, which is probably not a bad idea. I'll probably do that. Maybe I'll just quickly drill 3/8 holes, and then I'll just run those screws straight through into the timber, and that'll just keep everything in place. Then I can clamp all this down to the table, probably off the edge here, and then once clamped down, then I should be able to start heating this section up. Hopefully I don't get too much, like, I already know that the wood itself is going to burn and probably smoke a fair bit, and I'm just hoping that it'll keep its curve enough, like it won't break down quite as fast before I get the radius that I would like to try and get. So otherwise, another option would be, which is probably not a bad option, if this doesn't work, I could do another 10 mil piece of this, but underneath it, and bevel the edge of that, so it actually has something hard to go against. That actually might work better. So what I want to do though is give it a try. I really like where everything's lining up, so I might just put this in the drill press now. But I'm gonna try and see if this will work by connecting it to the vise. I have no idea if this will work. I might even start hitting it and everything might start moving, but I just don't have a way of putting the clamps all on one side without doing it this way. So, all right, so we have the buck clamped down, then we have our material that we are trying to bend. We have our upper plate, kind of just keeping everything flat. Our screws, they're just locating everything, not letting it kind of slide around. There might be a possibility where I might need to add more. We're totally unsure at this point, and I don't even know if this structure is going to work. But what I'm going to try and do is just heat up this edge, and we'll start to just knock this down, and then we'll just keep going until we got it right down kind of flush in a nice radius with a 90-degree turn. So who knows if this is going to work? Might be a massive disaster, but this is the stuff we want to show. See what'll happen. So the thing is, where I have this bit here where it goes in, there's gonna have to be some shrinking done. There's too much material. So I don't know if it'll work or not. But if we can get it close, even if I have to do a few relief cuts and then weld them. Oh! Put a mask on, everyone. All right, Don't know if it worked yet. It's got a really nice radius. Everything's like uniform, but I kind of have a feeling that it might be a little bit too small or too big to fit inside the frame rail, because the wood did burn a fair bit. So while I was hitting it over, it had nothing hard on the back side to kind of make that form. It was just the timber. So obviously, because it was getting so hot, it just kind of crumbled, as you can see, kind of down on the floor. So it's not bad though. Like if you, don't know if I can kind of show you, but it's super consistent on both sides. Kind of looks really nice there. This side turned out really, really nice as well. So I'm just gonna let this cool down for a minute and then we'll pull it out. And then, yeah, basically just have a suss, see what it looks like. Okay, it actually doesn't look all that bad, but we're not gonna know. I think it's gonna be a bit tough to get out of the buck, but. Well, that bit looks really nice. Bottom side look like pretty bloody close. Oh yeah. So you can see it's definitely charred it. I can hear it. So we need to probably maybe hit this with the hose so that I can hopefully use the other side. Otherwise I'm gonna have to make another one. Pretty cool though, like this needs a little bit of a, almost put that through the planish. I wouldn't really clean it up, but that's like really neat. And it's super flat, which is awesome. I need to bend this far up. This might actually work. I'm gonna just cut and bend this bit. I'm kind of cheating, but I think this is gonna be the only way to actually make this line up properly. So I'm just gonna stick the grinder. I'm just gonna cut the backside with a zip disc because I actually didn't realize the way I measured it was with the cardboard template, and there's like no allowance for a radius on this bit. So that's okay though, because you won't see it. So I'm just gonna give this a little then you should be able to just bend this guy. Okay, so this actually turned out really good. It actually fits quite nice. I've just kind of hammered and dollied the edge just to get it to just be a little bit smoother. But we do have a nice little radius on there. It fits really well. I'm just gonna kind of smooth this out, round all the edges off. But one thing I am gonna do is it's obviously a little bit wobbly from kind of where it had to be stretched over and then, you know, stretched in here and kind of shrunk here. So the edge is a little bit wonky. So I'm gonna do is just lay this down flat. And then I'm just gonna run a scribe line along both sides at the same height. And then we're just gonna trim those. I have this wicked, just gonna try and make a little bit more room so it's not so cluttered so you can see it. This wicked little tool, and what I'm gonna use it for is actually just to run like a dial indication. So I know that the lowest point was the inside there. So I'm just gonna run it just slightly under that. So now that that's all tight, I can use the flat surface. This is flat enough to give me a relatively good scribe line. And that is scribed. Oh, might actually just try and tighten all this a little bit more. It's probably don't actually need to take off that much material, to be honest. May even just put 2 clamps. Unfortunately, the radius is probably, it's quite nice here on this one, probably a bit too exaggerated. And that's purely from using timber, and obviously it's burnt, and when you hammer it over, you're just, yeah, basically crushing the wood, and all those little layers of ply glued together are just falling apart. So next time, probably use a wood buck or a metal buck, and it would do the job. But so I can just hold this up probably. Maybe just kind of hold it like that, and let us run a nice cut line along there. So I'll throw my gloves on.
Tricks, so I ignored my good intention. Called that number anyway. The doctor on the line said she'd get me in that day. Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze, Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze. Guarantee for that you gotta pay. She said she'd fix my body in that old-fashioned way. She wrapped her arms around me.
All right, so I'm just gonna kind of show you how it fits. It's pretty close, but it could be a whole lot better. With our angle, kind of our radius, this one's probably a bit too much, and it's not really allowing us a whole lot of meat to kind of get in. I wouldn't mind this sitting in a little bit more and having a bit more of a flange to be able to get a nice rivet in. So I think what I'm gonna do is take this as the learning experience, which it's, you know, it looks really nice, but it just doesn't quite fit. So that's okay, because we're all about trying different things here. So you can see my buck. Obviously, we knew that this was going to happen. You can see the edge of the buck. It's just not, you know, that's kind of our original edge that I wanted, something a little bit tighter. And then by the time, you know, we actually heated it up and hit it with the hammer, of course, this is just going to deteriorate as it was kind of smoldering and lost, you know, the majority of its shape. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to take that 10 mil plate. Here's our little piece that sits inside. I'm going to make a couple more pieces. We're going to do one more of these, and then I'm going to screw the plate to this on both sides, because we do need a male and female version of it. I'm going to bevel the edge of this so we have something to go onto. So when we put our material in, this is actually going to be the plate that it's going to be screwed to. That way, I'll have a nice strong edge to be able to kind of hit with the hammer to form it properly. And that should kind of do the trick. Right, so I'm going to lay it out. I've got enough material here to be able to get two pieces. So we'll have a right and a left. I'm just going to get our pen line here, so I kind of know where we need to go from. With this one, it's pretty important to try and achieve a real clean line. I can't kind of afford to have any little mix-ups with the torch kind of grabbing like I had before, so you really want to put it down a couple times. Just going to make sure I can get enough out of this guy. Probably even go that way. No, same way. Yep, that should work. Okay, so I kind of need to make sure I get it straight on that line. So I'm going to use this as my cutting edge again. We'll line the tip up.
Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze, Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze, tripping like a baboon on the Serengeti. She said the second session, she said Saturday sounds so sweet. She said she'd fix my ankle, put the rhythm in my feet. Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze, Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze.
Right, so I have both materials and then this top one, and all I'm doing is just locating the holes. Gonna drill straight through, and just so they always match. So when I go to put my center wood buck in, everything will line up.
Sister Squeeze, Dr. Juice, Sister Squeeze, Dr. Juice.
What we need to do now is obviously create a bevel on this corner, this one, and then the opposite on the other side. So I'm going to use my old veneer calipers. Let's do 5 mil on the top, and then we'll roll it over. So what I'm going to do is use this. I've put it at 5 mil, and I'm going to run a scribe line. Don't worry, these are my old ones. This is what I use these ones for, scribing. So what I'm going to do with this is that now is giving me an indication of when I'm grinding to try and make this bevel on this edge, that I know that it's going to be even all the way around. And then what I'm going to do is do the same on the edge of it. So now I have an indication on how far to grind that out, as well as along there. So I can knock this right down to get to that, and then I can kind of round the edges. And I know that it'll be the same consistency or same shape all the way around it. Pretty sure, I'm pretty confident this would work better. And honestly, you know what would be another really good way of doing this if I didn't have so much kind of flange to have to get folded up, is you could just make this, put a piece in, put your top plate on, and put it in the press, and just like press this down, and that would like eventually fold up on the edges if you just welded a bunch of material on. But then I'd have to make 2 of those as well for each side because they go opposite ways. So what I'm going to do now, I got my nice flat wheel 40 grit on the grinder. I'm going to clamp this down on the table. I'm going to go and turn the light on so I can see. And what I'm going to try and do is just grind that bevel down to a 45 degree, and then we can kind of shape it. My target, I've hit both my lines. I've hit my top line, I've hit my bottom line. So it's nice and consistent. So now I need to try and blend this over so it's all one. And then we can kind of hit it with the sander and roll it over. You've just seen, I basically made these top plates I kind of didn't show making this because I've shown you on the last one, but all I did was grab some stainless, I think it's M6 by 50 mil countersunk screws, or bolts, sorry, that go through and they just come on the other side now because I want to keep the whole thing in the structure. So now we actually have a nice solid piece along here. We have a nice beveled edge, if you can look in there. That's our beveled edge that we're going to roll this piece over. This is our top, so our top is holding everything in place. And what we can do now is clamp this down. We can heat up this edge here, and then we can hammer it over, and fingers crossed it actually works this time. So that form ply that's in here, I'm assuming is still going to probably get really warm, maybe even catch a light again, or just kind of smolder. But because we do have it sandwiched, hopefully it'll just kind of hold its shape to be able to get two sides out of it. So it will hopefully not look like that one. So what we can do now is I'm going to clamp this one back over on our vise, our little setup that we had last time. And we are going to try and hammer this one out and see how it turns out.
Never guess the places that I've been. You never guess the places that I've been. 'Cause everything is like a dream, yeah, but only in that dream that I live in. I'm never gonna let the day begin. Never gonna let the day begin. 'Cause everything is like a dream, yeah, but only in that dream that I live in. Oh, don't wake me up before you go, and I'll just make this bed my home. Oh, darling, please just let me sleep. Give me my dreams.
So I added a little kind of half moon with cardboard just to kind of finish off the end of it. So I'm just going to cut that out now on both of them, and then I'll clean them up, dress them, round all the edges, and then we'll fit these into place and bolt them in so we know exactly where they are going to live. And then once that's in there, I'll just kind of dress that, and then we'll have the rivets. We'll just have a nice little edge on it.
Never gonna lose the ones I love. 'Cause everything is like a dream, yeah, but only in that world that I dream of. Oh, don't wake me up before you go, 'cause I can't face this day alone. Oh, darling, please just let me sleep. Give me my dreams. Give me my dreams. Give me my dreams.
All right, so the one thing, kind of the last thing we do before we install these is I just got to fill these holes. They were just kind of where we held everything into place with the buck. So I'm actually just going to bevel the edge just a little bit with a drill bit just to make sure we don't have a sharp edge. Kind of helps blend the weld out a little bit. And then what I will end up doing is using that nice piece of copper we have, and I'll just stick that in behind, just allowing a bit of a backing, and then I'll just quickly put a little TIG weld on there. So there's two done. Just show you the back side.
Got the
Nice and
feeling
clean.
in your bones, make you feel right at home. Honey, does it well.
So now I can just quickly
Keep me dancing till
grab the little grinder.
I
We'll
could
just grind
run
these
around
down
this.
and you won't see them.
Head over heels, feels and bliss. The sun has got me on my track. I ain't ever looking back. I ain't looking back.
All right, so before we get these in, screw them and bolt them in, I made these little tabs off the back, and these basically will pick up kind of the inside of the cross member there. But with this side, we have the old stock hole where the exhaust used to go through. So hindsight would have been real easy to fill that if when this was not in here, but I didn't think I was doing this. So I need to fill this. So I'm just gonna put some cardboard in behind. I'm gonna trace that out, cut it, put it onto some steel, cut that. I'll just TIG weld this into place, smooth it out. Then that way, when this piece goes in, I'll drill 2 holes straight through, and we'll have 2 nice areas for some welds. So let's get into that.
Voice will echo, need no phone. Ruled by the laws above. Nature shows me, makes me taught. I could climb this mountain now. Rise
So there's our little piece. Just spinning around. I've just cleaned out the inside and the outside here. And then basically that fits in very nicely, actually, nice and tight. So I'll put that in, we'll weld this up, grind it smooth, and then we can start to fit these little pickups.
Ain't looking back, ain't looking, yeah, ain't looking back, ain't looking, ooh, ain't looking.
All right, so you can see I've welded that in. So now we can grind that smooth and we have somewhere to attach the rivets to. So right now what I'm doing is just measuring for where I'm gonna put these rivets. And then I've used my old calipers as my scribes. I've scribed a line on the top of the frame rail and have just measured to make sure that the head can live in there and have enough room. And then I've just divided it by 3 and came up so I have 4 rivets that'll actually hold this in top and bottom. So what I'm gonna do right now, just gonna so now I know where they're gonna live. And yeah, they're kind of close to the edge, but I think it'll be totally sweet. So what I need to do now is actually just drill these out with a pilot hole, and then I'll bolt it all into place. So I'm gonna go grab some hardware, and then we will stick these puppies in.
Come out of break of night, and the pink skies waving goodbye. She come out of break of night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free her reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as a breeze. Queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning.
You're just gonna be my torch guy. Because then that way I can
Flame off.
Okay, so Moose, you're gonna be on Flamin' Joe. What I might get, yeah, so we'll do this side. So you jump up there, Ben. What we're doing the rivets again, but we're actually doing a three-person job finally, which is great. We got Moose on the torch, cameo, our best mate. Ben's on he's got the big dong. We did make a big buck. As you can see, it's just welded out of a bunch of crap that I had. It's got a nice lot of weight to it. It kind of sits in there, rests up against the frame now, rail, and then Ben can kind of push down on the handle. So we should be able to cram these things in there and get them nice and tight. All right, that's basically a wrap on this video. Hopefully you guys learned something from it. I certainly learned a lot throughout the entire video, so I'm very pleased with how this turned out. Trying to, rather than just like sticking how I'd originally said, just sticking a piece of cardboard on there and tracing and cutting it out and just welding that edge like a typical kind of boxing plate that a lot of people do. I wanted to try something different. And that was really cool to try and kind of form this using the buck out of that 3mm steel, and then to hot rivet it into place, as well as connecting it, tying it into the cross member. I just thought it was a really neat idea, and finish it off with the little radius that we have on there. I'm super happy with how it turned out. And yeah, you can kind of see there's like a little bit of gap somewhere, like it's not perfectly consistent all the way along, but where these are, like it's pulled it really tight in. And for where we kind of replace that part of the frame rail, I think this, adds enough for, sort of a kind of a boxing plate or a fish plate, as you'd call it. It might not be full contact right to where we did it. Maybe hindsight, probably could have welded something on the back side of this, then put this on. But I'm super happy with it. I think it's great. Basically, this is now able to be removed off this jig. And I'll just set it back down on our little roller. That way I can set up the front end, motor and transmission can go in, and then I can set up the 36 rear end. We'll show you how we're going to modify that and the torque tube to make everything fit. And then once that's like front end's in, motor, transmission, torque tube, rear end, we can put like this thing on a set of wheels and we essentially have a roller, and then we can play with the body. So in the next video, you'll see us basically going to have to cut out the rear subframe floor out of the Model A body itself and sit it on here and kind of start to mock it up where it's loosely going to be fit. I won't bolt it down complete until we have the wheelbase sorted out. So I will use the wheel well, our tire, and I will center it properly that way. And then, you know, we'll do our body mounts and everything else that needs to be done. Rear frame rails, they still might have to get chopped off, as you guys know or don't know. 32 rails under a Model A, these usually have to be taken off because of the body where it sits. But I kind of thinking I might even shorten this and just have like a tiny little spreader bar just kind of poking out. That way I'd have a really nice recess on the side where I could mount my 39 Pontiac taillights, which would be kind of neat rather than drilling them into the lower panel that kind of is pretty standard for different style of taillights. But we're just going to do a couple different things, see what it looks like. If it looks silly, I'll chop them off. If not, I'll modify them to make them fit. Who knows? I just think maybe try something different. We'll see how we go. That way I could maybe put a little push bar on there, mount something kind of nice off this. And yeah, you never know. It could look really cool. So I'm going to try and get this off the table. I'm going to put it on the roller. I want to mock the body up, put the grill on, roll it outside, and see what it's going to look like. So that'll be exciting on the next video. But yeah, hopefully you guys learned something from that. That was definitely a lot easier having 2 to 3 people for doing the hot rivets as our previous video. If you haven't seen it, that we kind of, well, I explained how I did the hot riveting. Might not be the right way, but it worked for me, and I learned a lot doing it. So doing these ones, it was a little bit easier. It went way more fluid, as you kind of saw through the video. Everyone was kind of in their little job and knew what to do, so it worked out really well. One thing I did pick up on is a buck, which I kind of just welded this ugly monstrosity up, and we had our little recesses for the heads of the rivets, then the shanks came through, and that's what you'd hammer down using our gun. But just having a bit of, you know, being able to have a bit of purchase on this and push, and it is quite heavy, so like kind of the more weight, then it doesn't have that bounce back. Then, you know, trial and error. I first tried that first buck using the wood and the router. Obviously, I kind of had that feeling that this was going to happen. I didn't think it would happen so quickly, but as you saw, it obviously just charred it. And then, you know, we kind of lost our radius that we were trying to achieve. So this was actually the original one that I used. And the radius, if you can see that, it doesn't have a flat enough area to be able to get a rivet in there, and it wasn't long enough. So that was purely because when I was hammering it down, we were losing material, and this is just folding over. So obviously it wasn't going to work. Stepping it up a notch, we made a left and right side out of that 10 mil plate. I've radiused it. I showed you how to kind of scrub your lines so you don't, you know, everything kind of stays even. This worked, and probably it still charred our centerpiece. So what I would do in the future is probably use a different piece of timber, or I would just pack up a few more plates of 10 mil and just have it one solid piece to be able to hammer onto. But, you know, with being able to just stick this on and then putting our material on, this is actually the opposite side. You put your material on. This is our top plate. This is just helping, you know, from anything flexing. And then you're able to hammer on your edges, pull this piece off, pop it off, and that is what you're left with. And then I just radius the edges, you know, tried to clean it all up, make it look nice. And then this was essentially like a press fit into the side of the frame rail. drill our holes, bolt it, and you saw we riveted in. So not super complicated. You don't have to have crazy fancy tools. This is all scrap that I had. So from a simple template with some tape, trying to, you know, get that perfect kind of setup to make work in both sides. And then we just apply it to the rest of it, and it just evolved. So lots of learning, which was great, and I'm just super happy with the way it turned out. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, hit notifications, and we'll see you on another episode. And we may have something just over here. If Ben just quickly shows the camera, there's something really, really cool here. But yeah, well, there's lots to come. So can't wait to keep pushing along on this one, and as well as some future projects we have under our belt. So yeah, thanks very much, guys, for all the support. We'll see you soon.